Yeah, okay. Fair. Oh,
大家好，
yang tabra zobe chancho rinpoche sobara cha.
All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
Sanje chodan soje chonan lai chancho vardu dani japsun che dake jinso jinbe sonam che rola penche sanje roba sho.
In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings.
Ma nam ka dan nyam be sim chen tam chi de ba dan de be ju dan de para chur je du ma ra dan du nga ra ke ju dan che para chur je du nga mi be de ba dan me je nya re cha dan ni dan che be dan nyo la ne para chur je ma nam ka dan nyam be. Yeah, English.
May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Sanjay Chodan, Tabi to give Shazi to Mado to the Visit about WG Baker, Shazi, Shavla, Chanta, Lord, Durin Shazi, Malachu. Homotua, Javan, Bakaju, Lamana Mazuan, the Zunja position, Mani Chancho, Sanjay to Semelan and Drua, Pimba. When the Adesha Zurban, the Daja, they change of Mato, Vajiban, and Johnson, to show the Chancho, some Johnson, some Jishin, Chiba. Chiba Gundu Yanda, and Madan, the Machu, Bela, no Juji, Sadanam, the Yantara Zone, to Jan Chanki, Compound, your to show. Yeah, you know, there you are.
多是的嘞。
Oh, yeah. 我他克桑提的因克桑提的爬邦过呀，可是的罗的可是邦瓦切为求救设提那罗，他邦瓦切为求救提那了他，他那天啥的，他那英文切线七八毛的那趟光把邦啥英文些呢？ 다 셈 연인 조사 요라 냠나 진행이는 셈 연인 조사 제 요라我在研究学的另一在影响他们的在重庆的影响他们的影响有啊我曾经这么的但对上那做车架的他们的影响就有啊我切行车瓦线那可以他那些当年在他们的路马点的10年我对我没吧我曾经用过在你们其他他的他们的我听的我提醒你的我把它帮过来也是送多
So we are in the 10 things to be rejected, and we are at verse number 3. Continue with verse number 3 today. Reject a hermitage or place of meditation that is distracting or harmful. And so distraction here refers to what distracts us from our practice, from our meditation. For example, when we are in a busy city, there's all kinds of things that could distract us. For example, nowadays, there are so many things in the internet that are distracting us. That's distraction. And then harmful or harm, abandon is like harmful places, meaning that there are certain places that do not make you feel comfortable, so you don't feel like you can practice there really well. So something that's a place that is not conducive to your practice. So these places should be abandoned.
我当年嘛，根据恐怕就是说，你们没弄懂真，朝着大堂做事，没是弄吧？他日大了点的在强光毛书这个嘛意思。我真的你们没弄懂，朝着大，穷都够咱们什么地，穷都够大，咱们什么程度，穷多钱那是谁样都样的，我说，苦的红样的，咱们现在每年让我都说吧，怎么办呢？穷他说对，我才去去过中多。我真的搞他们恐怕是说开始从老婆求了的是，求婆涨了的是。张铺写了的，西铺出铺干部的，那张铺干部的才是，对，我才是。
所以这个能了对。
没都没弄。
哦，所以他妈的。
西铺出铺干部的在长铺的了，就是让他出通干部。我这了的是这种弄的，我听着弄的，没他这边去，没弄别长铺了，就3个月了。切对没事，但是就晚的这学生，那研究这些就3月完了切对没事，那么推送上街了，1、2月完了切完没事，我在那么推送上街的，可对呢，嘛这个全都给这是1、2月完了切完没事，我真的马瑞克这种多还是种什么，没弄个差不了，可得这结尾从头有什么来的评价？
呀，这是卡来什么呢？
没弄块差不了，从对可得结尾从头有种的话，我在这里让我在当年在车外面吧。做我听人家说，他研究上面吧，从这两年起那个做我特别大。我说现在忙不研究这个，我这里先苗不错，打破价过来。我这里买研嘛切啊，那切完现在在打多嘛的，咱们这用个的，在这朝阳咱们这在，样的影响着我切完现在，他等于这样，等于这对我们吧，我这切完了个，我真的，你可惜那在这着我都不忙着我，他就用水哇，对我们的。我听着用水吧的，我听着一天的他光把的，要不用嘛的种是啥的吧。
In the past, Kagyu masters have said that a practitioner should seclude themselves to an isolated place where there are no other people around and make friends with the wild animals there. Because in such a place where there's no one else around, we are less likely to develop thoughts of attachment, anger, and ignorance. And so they have said that in such a place, you are not distracted by the various sensations and conversations and food and clothing and so forth. So the past masters have said you should seclude yourself, dedicating your life until you die to such a cave, a practice cave. Milarepa also said that seclude yourself in an isolated cave with no other people around, at such a place, you will always remember the guru who is inseparable from the Buddhas of the three times. And Marpa had said that in a place, in a cave, a practice place where there are no other people around, this is where you develop your diligence in practice. So this is a point of staying free from distraction. So basically, we just want to get away from the many different distractions that we are constantly exposed to. So the main point of practice is to be in a place where you can actually focus without being distracted. And we have to look after our mind, protect our mind by doing that. And then regarding harm, abandoning harm, so it's more speaking about danger. You want to avoid really dangerous places, no places where you could run into maybe some criminals, some robbers who rob you and so on. So if you are in a place that's not really safe, then that also is not very conducive for you developing a single-pointed samadhi. So you need to be in a place where you feel safe and where you feel comfortable. So that's the meaning of abandoning harmful places.
我真呀，咱今天中午中的先能定个这些，你解决哪个的，对了，你要了推荐的开始，你普通做吧是个的事。我真的做吧了，但别是期间没人吧，期间的影响没吧，他是能定个这些突然捏出来，你说我这那边吧是，光吧是呢，我说你们光吧这经常在充钱呢，我光吧来给他吃饭么都啥的，你们光吧这远别去那里头，没啥，这光吧现在出来有事了吧？ 他那人他充钱呢，在吃饭都啥就光把那边啊说，我这你们这里什么的，他光把钱拿来，俺把钱几块啥的，我真的去心疼，是觉得那这那人把他这的，我去的心头没去他的工作的工作就出来了，那个话，我心头也不干，他说要不让兄弟嘛，他说也不这样的事情就不有，我的你妈的，对呀，他公开都长毛有了事情呀，是自然人呢。
Okay.
公开过去长毛有了你妈，但那要不有了，嘛可是呢，你妈要不我那要不有了，这空着他就对我起来有嘛的，是吧？这空是了，我你妈起来没过啥有了，他对呢。错吧，我想错吧这是没那行，我就都推过嘛哇，像错吧就是在这边的是来了我有吧，我真是谁过的也是错吧我，你们就对没吧是，你们他们他说人家没吧。 这个的是，没忙不着是，那么讲，那我在起点啊，对我有嘛吧？这人就按照盘着、穿着，就是站么的长是吧？这些都是，你我几乎就对没吧是，车模站浪说没吧是，几块没吧是，车模他站着我，干嘛着我？但是说没办法是过去啥吧？这过去啥呢？几块没吧是，这就公办一点是，我在这就公办一是，那就我打算就是这就公办一是。
And Lord Jigden Sumgön had said that the mind must remain single-pointedly in a state of samadhi within. Then from this, to cultivate such as a single-pointed state of samadhi, one must rely on the perfect outer, external, supportive conditions. And these are conditions that prevent distractions and allow for one-pointed samadhi, concentration. So therefore, he says that a yogi should practice single-pointed samadhi in a heritage, it says secluded heritage. So regarding the heritage, so the literal term here is Gampopa, which literally means monastery. So here it's actually correct in English. to say hermitage and not to say monastery. So sometimes it's translated as monastery, which it is the word for monastery. But in the old days, what is meant with Gampopa is actually an isolated place where there are not many people around. Nowadays, you may even have a monastery in a town. It's just a place where the monks, where the ordained live. That's what we call a monastery nowadays, or Gampopa. That's what we call a Gampopa monastery. But so in the old days, the term was much broader, had a much broader meaning. So it's where the monks live, but it's also meant to be a place that is isolated and away from everything. So that's the hermitage. So, or the Gampopa. And so in such a place, Thich Nhat says, a yogi practices in such a secluded place, and that should possess the following characteristics. There should be trees, or like some trees and water. So some provisions should be available there, because if the water, for example, your sustenance, source of sustenance is really far away, then you have to walk there to get it, and that would take a lot of time. So you're wasting a lot of time. So you should be in a place where water and food is readily available. And then also it is should be a place where you're not completely like sunless. It says here there should be some kind of, it should be faced kind of in such a way direction where the sun is actually shining on it. So if you're in a place that's kind of dark and shady, then it also gets quite cold, especially at night. So it should be a conducive place with food and drink and sunlight. And then also it should be a place where there are no daytime disturbances by other people. So if there is all kinds of other people around, then they're noisy. They go back, they go forth, and they say all kinds of things. So it's very distracting to have a lot of people present. And then at nighttime, it should be a place that is safe, so free from any criminals or robbers and so forth. So a place where you feel safe, where there's no fear that something will be stolen from you. So this is what he defines as the characteristics of a conducive place for practice.
真的，当时的那个研究他嘛边的，是他那长波把它说啥子？这几个嘛，这研究他嘛边的，也是他推荐做嘛，这个啊。
查见等着了。
查见吧，他说，但那长波把在他人不学在没啥毛毛不累的，他人不就不累的，然后搞来考我有啥了哇？搞来考我了哇？我这在下家公北边是，但是的下家公那里是主办吧，从他人王是从他的朋友吧。是这样，全都是这些人，那弄变多了，为了那可西巴么，让他冲把他的我来在那我们破康是弄通是弄把东吧，他吃不着破康是吃不着，这弄把东吧了，我们下节我们都不起是，我那都不起个人是的，是他他的我那冲吧。
So it says that so these characteristics, such is a dwelling place or practice place for a beginning practitioner. And so for a beginning practitioner, we need to have all our provisions readily available, because for beginning practitioner, we need to focus on the practice, and it's difficult to just go really far distances just to get your food and drink. So these are the characteristics of a dwelling place for a beginning practitioner. And it is said that for such a practitioner, a single day of meditation in such a secluded hermitage, far away from towns, a place so that is isolated, such as on a mountain peak or in a kind of river valley, or in a cave, or just an empty valley. So to meditate for just a single day in such an isolated place is more powerful than practicing 10 days of meditation elsewhere.
真的笼统破康下节光把个做不起是样，这下节光被拿出他下节光把拿出他先拿出他这，第一是感觉呢，他是明显他这他这个光做不起来难多，这老婆希望的种的是哪的日大他恰当现那么每年有没意思，那个就是没啥拿出那是啥，我这哪呢日大他说跟这给些度假老个嘛是吧？每年没吃老个嘛的是，其他头都是老个嘛是吧？ 所以说，我那样都是用个嘛话，都是菜都加，所以说那个嘛话，我菜都拿，菜现在都拿皮个嘛话，都很不然后，我这说明年有个嘛的，少点就得了，他就讲嘛，第四，但是做听他做，蛮硬不起过的，我愿意说真这个嘛，愿意说这的可来呢，那其实明白的一点了，愿意说呢，然后就去那几块的，是吧？
And then Shanti Deva had said that in a forest, the reason why it's much more beneficial to practice in an isolated place, he said, is because in an isolated place such a forest, the wild animals and the trees, they don't speak unpleasantly to you. They don't say anything to insult you. They don't say anything to upset you. As normally when we are among people, we quickly feel insulted by things, and that distracts us. So because the trees and the animals don't say anything to us, we also not going to be distracted. So it's mainly about not being distracted. Of course, if you are in an isolated place but still distracted, then it's just the same as being in a busy place.
我到其实没来这边，对这边边那边边把了3天光被人干，三对这那边边把那的那3天光边，咱们吃年中的是咱们干的，咱们吃年是咱们干的，咱们吃年的吧。这这个是说接特别是咱们吃年的我这是，对是了3个星期没吧。
Milarepa said, such a solitude that is free from busyness is the guide on the path of cultivating samadhi or meditation.
真的，他根本被公检把这出了，第二个吧呢，前几他们去帮前吧去吧，但前几嘛我用的研究出来，我这前几天跑当不是，但我做的这个就碰上东西，在这中间图标搞得好不多啊，说，推出其他有嘛，推那这，但你们这些呢，推这这个推什么其他没通，推出的手的你们去的。 我的英文题爬帮，我的众多英文题爬帮呢，别讲学术这个人们写学这些提供这些建议的，其他呢同样的是，人们写的你把写给了哇，这段这个这些呢，人们同样你把自己出了哇，我听对听出这是，人把这些图给就你们是人把多嘛，是出点把这些，那人把这些图那是人们去多，那出点过的众多，但没那里帮你嘛，老嘛可惜，他就是出进把这样多的穷的工作人，是出进把这样多么个事，听着想让他。 好的说说是，那把你想吃的是吧？
你把你来，
你想吃啥子多啊？你想我这了的那把了啥的多？我这了学的没了这把他不满意，你吃的，真的，但就是逐渐把这样弄过，但是我说生前同期这拉不着还得穷工作，真的没了这边我这逐渐都要的，别就是人把嘛的是，那就是他们他妈的出了这样做回来是。 我听的那么恐怕能看着在小团中的这主单的用的是，我这身边同的这主单的用的这主单的给就是人吧，一种罗真中的啥了吧？因为今天重设他单位那去吧，就是说他第一是主的原因说那这个嘛的是，在重设的当这个习惯的是，单位那去重把它做那的一定的这个是，真的人了的呢。 重设的英文去吧，没意思。我在这里做的呢，从重设的先搞的这个原因，这回从这重设英文去个没意思啊。你们说别解或者别解，没在场地有啥了吧？真的，旅真的在装上了装修是，先真的是学习是老的时候，我真的我 嘛第一次了，给就了中把气，我那给就也不中过，也没生气过，也是。
And then, so then Gampopa said that the purpose of a great meditator staying in a secluded hermitage is so that the purpose of staying in a secluded hermitage is so that we can abandon all activities and abandon all distractions and then practice the Dharma single-pointedly. And of course, nowadays, it is difficult for us to go into a mountain hermitage and practice there, just like the past Kagyu masters. We don't have that time nowadays, but at least we can try to do our best to focus while we are practicing. So for example, if you are practicing for an hour, then for that hour, don't think about anything else. Don't do anything else. Just focus totally on the practice just for this hour, because then it is much more effective. Now, often we do many things at the same time. So we practice and then we kind of mix it with other things. We do other things on the side, but that makes the practice also less effective. So we should practice. And then, so it says then, so in the same quote, if you're going to be distracted, then you might as well be distracted in a village or among the nomads, or among people. There is no point in staying in the mountains in seclusion if you're just as distracted there, or even more than in a village. In the past, Milarepa, when he was staying in Nishan, which is now Nepal, Rajungpa and some of his disciples would ask him to come back to Tibet and teach and go out among people and teach others and mix with people and do something to benefit sentient beings. And in a way, almost insulting Milarepa, saying that just being all by yourself all the time and not mixing with anyone is almost a bit selfish. You don't really care about anybody else. But Milarepa said to that in response, there's nothing selfish about that, because these are the places, these isolated places are the places where a yogi perfects all the stages and the paths of practice. Meditation is the best way to serve the guru, and it's the best way to accomplish the benefit of sentient beings. There is nothing negative or selfish in doing that. And of course, if one is in a mountain hermitage, just secluding oneself to avoid everyone else, but then really being distracted in the mind, that of course is not beneficial. Then one might as well just stay in a town, in a village. We actually have a saying in Tibetan, we say that so there's a certain kind of person, they like a retreatant staying in retreat. We say that like they put their bodies into a prison, but their mind is escaping the prison at the same time. So Gampopa then continues. So therefore, the point is you should apply yourself diligently to the practice.
我真的过上别种的，过上别原本光把电下降，是原本光把电做事，那就主要不对的，现在样式呀，从这去英文，从这南头都会英文，从这南头就是在英语说呢，说完人自己的，你教导某什么说，从这才变的对吧？我在英语说呢，现在把问题可以，是我在现在把律师把这点呢，现在把那头干嘛的，是这律可以预占是在两边启动，是这个可以预占是的意思。一年不那么这兴趣节是我的一年不他们两把下巴蛮硬嘛，其他特别兴趣节 제체라고 치고레스 나도 사자 치고레스.
And then Master Gotsangpa had said, even though one speaks of relying on a solitary hermitage, if the mind is distracted by thoughts of subject and object, and not really the mind is not really secluded, then this effort is a wasted effort. And so that's because if we seclude our bodies, but our minds are constantly distracted by all kinds of dualistic thoughts, thinking about enemies and friends, and naturally we will always develop thoughts of attachment and anger. And then even though the body is secluded, the mind is not secluded. So therefore he says, keeping the mind in a meditative state of equipoise without wavering from it is something that a practitioner should cherish the most.
我的听就各种的比较深入的这嘛的说上了，对吧？这个
第6대 가봐 도선 세번한다.
对通了吧？
你是这蹲住蹲你的呗？
通了。
懂了呗？哦，懂了。
我他的第9了，看的是那他干部别送他在那做了讲情况，可能30的这看的是呢，工作有就这边错吧帮是他这里过的加的，错是那钱花加样东西，有就现在那个跑都要的，我第这边看错吧帮过来是，过是那他这趟看了一周的，没错才进的购买加这个，他购买是国家是那个让啊，错现在在这部网友钱他错着要的呢。但可惜钱花家了，错送起来，那得是错呀。尤其是那他这当个过当的，咱他从头了，尤其工资的话，别家可惜那他就从家呢，家嘛，他家嘛，这家呀，你家嘛都是最嘛钱。我这家那也不明了有这那边子有的话，那送家的，我这里我这是有就能的，我区别的这边错帮些东西多。
Then we move on to number 4, verse number 4. Reject sustenance acquired through stealing, robbery, or deceit. So stealing refers to that which is done in secret. So when at a time when nobody's looking, you take something, you're stealing. Then robbery is to forcefully attack someone and rob them, like a robber. And then a deceit is to cheat, to deceive others, to cheat others. For example, to cheat others when doing business. For example, if you're selling things that you weigh, then you weigh a little bit wrong, so you give them a little bit less amount, or you have a thing to sell that's not that good actually, but you tell everyone it's the best, so that's deceit.
这些种是他全特别简单，错吧？这让我马口样，他全特别简单，错吧？他让我买去呢，干嘛的对吧？去，干嘛他出过去呢？这个没错过家伙，你说话中那他这个嘛的是那的，样子干嘛去那的是个交票，是那这求去那的，这地方中那我的是，干嘛去那？干嘛去？七八，我当干嘛做那是底下的，做完新鲜，那干嘛国家那也没哈过个吧，哈过个嘛，他们说的还穷他起的呢，我这基本上我的是的说，我这起的真的假如去全部跑过来是，在那全跑过来。但今天呢，咱们直接我看看到明朝人把这下了用的也是，你那确现在这个了，干嘛家得找着啊？这个上面下有着的呢，干嘛家是的，干嘛家的家拉提说求起的，这样子办着干嘛往说？我的那个干嘛还讲，但对吧？那干嘛还讲没着说我的也是。
都是去都被搞不来。
我那是去那边去的，看到后来他都，
Penangan yang ini kiran chalak kersho dawlab. Penangan yang lengom gap che ini kiran chalak kersho tin dawajina.
Oh, 他就能够交票，就能够买交票是的。然后那个嘛， nga ko ma ni ba ha ko na ro wa ji ma ko xin na ta no ye ta ko ko ja de da re sa za so so phe chu chi na ji ka de sta
and so as first the text explains the meaning of stealing, and so obviously personally stealing something, taking something, stealing something from someone is, of course, a very negative deed, but it says that even if you don't directly go and steal something yourself, if you associate with theft, then it is just as though you have done it yourself. For example, you may associate with theft by asking someone to bring you some while you sit here and practice and meditate, or if you know that that someone brings something to you and offers it to you, and you know it's been actually stolen, and you still accept it, then it is just the same as really stealing it yourself. It is a great negativity, and so the text says so no, in the old system, of course, there will be then a punishment from a king, and also, in a mundane sense, you will have a bad reputation, and people will criticize you, and needless to say, it is considered extremely negative from the perspective of the Dharma.
Oh, 真的，但特别的的难度，我这切换现在咱切换真不往用创着是吧？可惜就能开始创着，咋样的？没这些错的。可惜在北部的往前进步这种还就现在往出来，可惜咱的这种从前这种给没这有没有这说法错着说的，我这切换了我说的，我是干嘛国家现在有句说吧，这把帮过来是我有点国家的掐着有句下来，我这种说法他帮过来也是，有句说法现在他这没能够搞都要他了，他这。就当他用过普通话给他创作了，没得那现在当中说那个普通话中那个不从出才兴起起来的，我但没人呢，兴起做学的，我这就是啊，
那行呢？
但学呢，就是学了，他没人呢，他这个不从都在行动，就是在做学的可能，他刚去上山样了，我这咱们来用谁把的。我这种人个破的这个，我在这种的，假如说就是人家钱包你了，是吧？在就是那个穷就是呢，钱包在启动手作，那是蛮个破当的，我这但是有句类似。
And so then it goes into the various motives for stealing or robbing or deceiving. So one may do it out of desire or out of attachment. One may just take something forcefully from someone, or one may cheat or deceive others into getting something, for example, in order to become more powerful, or one may even threaten others with weapons. And so all of these forms of cheating and stealing and robbing must be abandoned. Or, for example, there's an example given here. Cheating also means to kind of inflate the reality of what has actually happened. So, for example, if you have a sponsor and you ask them to sponsor a nice representation of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, and so then you actually end up not using the money for that, but something else, for example, and don't actually get those holy sacred representatives of body, speech, and mind. That's also deceiving. Or even if you inflate your accomplishments, for example, you're doing a small thing and you make it appear to be such a major, grand thing.
我在这里，他从到那求这个找把满意吧，追求进个扩大呀。但是看啥才看咋在看就么子来说啥了，小龙人在说在龙阳的啊，我这就说了，龙阳这他们这是错不这样的是啥了？这走这就那边的。我但你把你错了，我但也得说他说起的那的， Robert so at the bank or is that to go course tank that so young don't do that go course tank that the bank or is我这这那到我讲上去也特别起来呢，对，过上的这老粗着嘛的是，买比较嘛的是，
Shock technology.
手机可能都得兄弟老我的，我讲是上去特别起来呢，过上的这老粗嘛的也是老不做嘛的是，
Technically shock technically.
小龙呀，
手帮手
小龙
浪
现在等下这我这也不懂是的这那边这个吧，就说给这你没得用，这样子说突突不的是其他的吧，没这家那也不说呢。 哦，这家伙等下他这个也不能吃了，这哪样了哈？
So it then gives various examples and says in brief, deceit is when you use something that is meant for the Dharma and make it into something contrary to it. So you are, for example, exaggerating or you're twisting different kind of accounts on what had happened, or you're kind of inflating yourself, like as we just said, by making a small thing look really significant and major, or you're kind of swindling to others to get something, like soliciting and kind of trying to like talk them into something so you get something out of it, and so all of these activities of trying to doing things in order to get something out of it, cheating and lying and so on to get something out of it, are things that need to be abandoned.
哦，真的，他还是这的，确实是的，我的还是而且他这个，他那工作白就那先要做就白那就做完，当时先做就起来做完了。 没去了没注意吧？他没去了没注意些的，看啥有的，没去了没注意的。
没注意了。
他嘛同他同事，可以听那么多，这嘛同这同事，但我些名呢，我些有些，大家话我今年同事了，俺那边有的话听，我这没去了没注意些了，啊，我没去了没注意的点错吧？是我这没去了没注意些呢，这几趟没去面那些他用课嘛，但是忙起上了那么去反正可以。 去配送也有了吧？我都是用这个的，他我些米呢，我些有，他蛮多，他我这蛮多这样通，他可以几万个去上班给通知做吧？
几万吗？
我几万个去，不是的，就是人家忙不了，听上这些有的什么东西，我这就起码这没去那没准起来了，就他同学那都没写着哇，同学没拿他这就陪人过课堂呀，这没去那没准起。 就点错了，这就光晓得求这了，我就把这个，但光晓得我就把可以想这个高端样的我得了，这是光晓得跟对了，可以呢，天上的话，切些我就让说的跟对不可能，跟对不能我就要用个也是，我那是，
跟对了看的盘呢，
但跟对了，既然拿路都要配下来呢，跟对几百块万个也是，跟这个也是的话，跟对了可能跟对10盘那样，跟对盖了盘那几盘那的吧。
看的盘呢，查了呢。
我大可以呢。
跟对了，die工作中了盘呢，等你。
工作中嘞，跟对工作了盘啊，一那是了咯。跟对让跟对些多呗，这跟对让跟对的说的那么的，对吧？这不用让的那么安个的是让往切些是安个的是我就让是。
And then it says that so in terms of stealing and robbing from others, it refers to even, for example, speaking about engaging in a livelihood that relies on, for example, killing others, or also a livelihood that is built on false claims. So, for example, that happens often in the Dharma among spiritual teachers. For example, they may say that I've seen the deity, even though they have not seen the deity. Or they say, I've seen a ghost or a demon, even though they haven't seen anything. Or they claim to have clairvoyant powers, or they claim to know or see all the past lives and so on, even though they haven't seen it. Of course, there are those who do see it, and then if they do see it, that's very precious, but claiming to have these abilities when one actually doesn't totally have them, that is such a kind of wrong livelihood of deceit. And so then it says, so likewise, when making when one takes offerings that were meant to be offered to the three jewels, and one enjoys them instead oneself, then it is just like one is actually robbing from oneself, because oneself, in a sense, is also part of the Sangha. This go at the cara de matok skendun. Yeah, so sorry. So the point is that one should not take the offerings that are meant for the three jewels and then instead take some and use it oneself, unless one is actually, an actual Sangha and just uses kind of a part of it. And then there are certain times or exceptions where it is permissible to use some of that wealth, but in general, one shouldn't take the wealth meant for the three jewels.
Sem tang nyam la no be ko sang le tang cheba bangs wo ta sem nyam na chi de ga de nyam yong nyam na no ya no be de le cheba ti bang ta ze le ka mo wo yin na su nyam na no ge wo de ne ze on nyam na chi be ne ka ge sha mo bo yi ze an cham da cha dang mo so ge jian dang de ze yi ho na de nyam na no ge wa wo ti de cheba su bang ko le se ta le ka sin na la ri cheba ka li na de nyam na no ya de这样的有人确定被厦门的是突然自己没得个那个用的，怎么？我都没得了，听着用过的这些了。我真的在这些这是什么没得的，然后人家这到杭州嘛，是那用的话，怎么？听着用过的，他是这个，你呢？他在他的一家那是特起的，他研究过吧？我这期呢，我做放过来种多。
And then next verse number 5, reject aims and activities that harm your attitude and experience. So that kind of harm, or literally, that harm your mind and your practice. So meaning that often when we don't have too much time to practice and we have so many things to do, we have all these activities that harms our practice, that harms our mind. Or even while we are practicing, if we don't fully focus on that, but instead we talk about all kinds of things while we are practicing, then we develop all these thoughts of attachment and anger and aversion in our mind, and that harms the mind and it harms the practice. And that's actually also why often when people do not practice properly and they are not doing other things while they're practicing, that's often why they become a little unstable mentally. So that's what's meant with harming your mind. It's harming your mind or your attitude here, your mind. It harms your mind because when people are elsewhere as they practice, then often they become a little bit emotionally unstable. And that's because the mind is distracted.
我真的，就是我学到很多的，我就是没来这帮人忙，他可能是中国他来不哇，他这里的刚做铺设，可能你们学校提早的之后也有啥个刚做铺的多，
Gampopa.
Gampa success point has a Gampa. So, this thing is the deal, says the Ganda to Ana Sofia. Or showed it, Sayan to Yanchino or some other, that do to some reason. Then Puller and Dropal was under the march around at this Lomoja. Marshibal and Rona. Then it's a direct is Lomoja. Then it's so the Chasa is and to Sondoa. That is Mazaran of Rosa. Then Yan Dosa, they son the Anne. You're Anne drop, but who do Anne, who Anne Jero. Anne, the young Shamdia Colet. That job the chit the Jizuma Gamba. Though this talk this that there is a Jizuma told you in wonder now, and it's soon as you know. Today, my Shinka also the son I could do I could this daughter. Well, I could you are. But then quote that you can know about them, but some short school also punted that let those to me. Or then there's punted that let those. Or said it that mumble the Euro. They do should those Jizuma or chess. They didn't dark him those night that you are. Or they said this is my Gigi in me. What took? Today, Gaju Lama, Chang Tang Jiazo, Najoran, Tadrachum, 2 jobs, they love you. Some rose this, Kimbazo, Gonta, those that is human touch him like get out. You know, nobody is on some of them is that one of the reasons.
Did Miller work or something? What on that?
Jizuma, that Gaju Lama, Chang Tam Jiazo, Chang Tam Jiazo Zuma, that
Oh,
that's so short, stand Najoran, Jan, Osta, Consul Mars, Ramda or cheese. Tell up to so much be she no that is meant to that he now you're some I could catch him the met some Yabachi, one car, and as a dream of the him but some of the land was no by my own Shirozi. The legitimate yards on Chapo that is the notion. They are nearly a boha, and if you're on. And if led it, that person so in more came those. Someone that is here, that nation gang in there. They told me to sort of Saturday. Someone to Jihong said, this is my Shingachi Sara. They, yeah, and they send on the Karzan from Mrs. Ambo, they do this. This is someone the Jisons. Tijela, the mother and then someone the somebody said that his Kitaya Shingas only is that you never do goes. Chumera Dina, Mima, Chokunuban to Jabba. Nike society is major. Not sure on the rock, she's not Shingas on the Rimbais. They just like, oh, that. Mojong, you may Mojong get to reach him, this Hako, number some to get out. Mojong get nobody from those Nina, the animal somewhere is on the dissimulate. The Shiran comes and a sopa comes and Shiran sopa comes on. Or to do something that you never didn't, the Chatham was on prayer and Mado. Tambundo, some days similar to others. What the
Pepsonga?
That's other so than Radina. Chatham was on prayer and you talk Yamak Pendrosa Mari. Something she got some unnatural cheese, Roslo. The genes come by she got so much on genes.
But a story from Milarepa. Milarepa, after he had just started to practice, at one point he came back to his home area, and there was a cave, the Gampopa, which means literally the cave where he planted his feet. So this is meaning the cave where first samadhi arose within him. So he was staying in that cave close to his homeland. And at one point, he didn't have any food or water to drink. So he thought that I can't live like this. I have to get something to eat and drink. So I better go to town and ask for some butter and some food.
Professor and Johnny Mart Shuras, Lanza, she based some direct Lanza and Doshate, and according to this house and Martin Combat body, Roger. Him and Ofani. Combat and it and Drosalo Sara, a quitting Salos, Washington.
I need to
and a quitting Battles are.
So he thought, so he first I should go to the nomads because they have butter and there's no dairy things. And then after that, I go to the farmers because they have some grains and I'm asked them for some grains. So the plan was to go to the nomads first and then go to the farmers. And what he didn't know is he had this evil aunt and uncle, and they had actually moved elsewhere, moved house, but not elsewhere ever since. And so he didn't really know where they're at. So he went first to the nomads, but who he then ran into there, the nomad was his aunt. And when she saw him, she insulted him and screamed at him and beat him and said, "What a shame! Look at you! Here's this you're this demon who brought so much ruin on us." And so she hit him, throwing some rocks, hitting his legs, and so then Milarepa felt a bit disheartened and he sang this song of sadness, and then she stopped for a while and then let him go. And then he went, so then he tried his luck with the farmer, but who he met there, the farmer was the evil uncle. And so then the moment the uncle saw Milarepa, he also cursed him and he said that here is this demon who brought all ruin on us. And he also chased him down with rocks, hitting him with rocks and arrows. And Milarepa lost heart that moment. So we have to also remember that that was the early stages of his practice. He was quite a new practitioner. So he was disheartened and he sang this sad song supplicating to the Paskagyu guru. And then he said, "On all you protectors, come here." And then when they heard that, they were all scared because he was well known to be a sorcerer, a black magician. And when he said, "Come here, all you protectors, all you gods," they thought, what is he going to do next? And they were all afraid that he's going to cast another curse. And then they all started apologizing and said, "Please don't harm us. We are sorry," except for the uncle. But everyone felt really apologetic and they just asked him, "Just go." And then he left back to his cave. And then soon his aunt came to visit him and apologized and said, "What I did yesterday was not good. And therefore, please accept an apology." So at that time, Milarepa still actually basically owned a field, some property, some land, a field and a house that they have taken over, but it was really his. And so she said that, "I'm going to cultivate your field and I'm going to grow on it. And then whatever grows on it, I will bring it to you to nourish you. Please accept that as an apology." Milarepa already was a bit suspicious when she said that. And he thought, who knows what she's really thinking. But he just let her do it. And he said, "Fine." So then she went, and one day she
دوا
returned.
كاشيس تجيوسا كلا كوني زل كاشا سورات ndawon tuso تجيوسا دوا كاشيس
So a few, and then a few months later, she returned. So that gave her some time, of course, to grow something. So a few months later, she returned with a bag of tsampa, and so she said that, "So take this as."
저랑 이 메이크만 통사 담부로치스 이 신가 좀 비진반 있어 메이크만 통사 담부로치스
And then so she said that this is all you're getting out of your field. Take it as a payment for your field, and now leave somewhere where we cannot see you, where I can no longer see you. And so Milarepa then confirmed, and he knew that, okay, this is what she really had in mind. And he thought to himself, if there is no one who triggers your anger, who will you practice patience with? And then he thought that this is not a conducive place for practice. I better not stay here. If I stay here, I might develop thoughts of resentment and anger or attachment in my mind. So I have to go to the Jagadaso a different place. It's not good for me to stay here. It's not good for my practice. And so then he told her, just keep it all, keep the field, keep the property, the house. I'm going to leave.
tenturile jithi malare ba ta ja sechina de tradina de na chito kama de chagata son yana ya ko charwa de tentuile sa da ti nga so pang se dan do nyam la no be ko le ta cha pang se de ti pa pang ro malare ben kama so ma ane di.
And so maybe if Milarepa would have stayed in that place and not left, maybe it would have been difficult for him to practice. So later when he then went to Rakataso, to another place, his practice became really excellent because he gave up a harmful place and he gave his house and property, the field, to the aunt, and he left it all behind.
근데 다 돌고 검자 정말 정말 주로 세서 근데 제만 가서 검자 시고 근데 돌고 다 선선 시작하나 정말 특이지 근데 다들 남쪽은 전체만 배셔 고도 같이 차 버스턴은 레셔사가 이나 시간에 가서科长님은 인식 도와요 좀다 세메디 스테콘도 다나
컨소민데
가게 때 저런데도 좀科长님만在提送上그래서 나想这个情况吧，像科长一起就在美。
So today it's already a bit late, so we will not meditate today. We will meditate next time. So thank you, everyone. And also some people mentioned that they didn't have the text, the precious garland of the sublime path in English. So if you don't have the text and you need the text, you can get in touch with me, Ina. I have the text. I can forward it to you.
전에 나도 아름전하라 여하튼에 들은 것처럼 뭐지 나랑 아주 니고 갈라티 ям사이 배를 뭐지 구조 야고 야고도
And Drupon said, I'm in Arizona now, and today I had lunch together with Rinchen Rinpoche, and Rinpoche is doing really well.
야, 전에 dedication 다다지 지금 좀
Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yadams and assemblies of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana and the innate root of virtue not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratikya Buddha. May all other sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Maras, and the hordes of demons experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drupon La.